Hi everyone, Mike the Off-Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Rae Sremmurd album, Srem, or Srem Life 3, the third one, the third commercial album they've dropped. As I've said, this is the third full-length commercial album from SWAE and Slim Jxmmi, aka Rae Sremmurd. And not only is this thing their third full-length album, but it's also separated into 3 discs. The first part is a collaborative effort from the duo's respective members, SWAE and Jxmtro, and then after that, the whole album splits off into 2 separate discs, with each member kind of taking over a disc, sort of like in a speaker box Love Below kind of situation. They're really the outcast of the trap generation. Now, when going into this 3-disc odyssey, I was kind of torn, because in one breath, I liked the duo's second album quite a bit. It wasn't amazing, but it wasn't terrible either. It had a lot of great single tracks on there, like Black Beatles and Start a Party, Shake It Fast with Juicy J and Look Alive. There were a lot of great forward-thinking, kind of cutting-edge, weirdly produced trap bangers on that thing that played to the duo's boyish delivery and style, their youthful aura. And honestly, even though this was not a perfect project, I could kind of see the duo going up from here creatively. Maybe not in a lyrical sense, but maybe more with them kind of finding out ways to write weirder, catchier songs. So I did have that in my mind going into this triple disc experience. But then again, it is 3 discs of music from Rae Sremmurd, who we already know going into this thing don't have the artistic versatility or the lyrical fortitude to handle an entire 100 minutes of music and keep it interesting from start to finish. Maybe their chances of pulling through are better than that of Migos on Culture too, but still the odds are kind of stacked against Slim Jxmmi and SWAE. Now still, there are some great tracks on this project with sticky production and super catchy hooks, charismatic verses, decent features as well. However, most of these songs land on the first disc of the project, where SWAE and Jxmmi are pretty much greater than the sum of their parts. Hey, kinda like you and me. Best friends forever. 2 peeps in a pog. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. There is no God. Especially when Jxmmi and SWAE are on top of these Mike Will Made It beats that feature some co-production from the likes of TM88, Rock 30, Zaytoven, Metro Boomin, and many more. There are plenty of highlights on the first disc, like the song Up in My COCINA, which has a very eerie atmosphere on it, banger trap beat, some very like suspended, creepy, like horror movie synthesizers. Jxmmi and SWAE come through with those boyish vocals, dropping these super laid-back, chill flows, braggadocious rhymes with very absurd and playful references. Another highlight for me on this thing is Buckets featuring Future, another total banger backed with these sour, kind of disjointed piano keys, fumbling their way underneath one of the most cutthroat verses that Jxmmi drops on the entire project. Future's appearance on this thing is relatively solid. I mean, I don't know if you have to try rapping too hard to sound impressive or sound like you're doing a good job on a Rae Sremmurd album, but he certainly sounds like he's doing the bare minimum. I love the song 42, if not just for its instrumental, its flow, and its strange European sizing references in the hook. It sounds like experimental, obscure, lo-fi 8-bit SoundCloud trap. The song POWERGLIDE featuring Juicy J is another highlight on here. A truly psychedelic, enveloping song. Super dark, super surreal, and Teed Up is even a song that, even though I wasn't crazy about it as a single, it did grow on me a little bit. The first disc on this thing has a great vibe to it, a lot of solid tracks. I mean, it's not perfect by any means, there are a few low points. The song Close featuring Travis Scott would be a total waste of time if not for the instrumental, and the Travis Scott feature has one of the most obnoxious hooks on the entire record. You see L-O-S-E, you see L-O-S-E to me. Perplexing Pegasus, while I do love the flows in the instrumental on this track, they don't really do too much with it. There's not a necessary hook on this song at all. It just kind of feels like they strike a vibe and they just kind of leave it there until the track is over. And Bedtime Stories featuring The Weeknd. This has to be Abel's worst feature ever. He's literally mumble singing his way through the song. I guess, you know, there is mumble rap. He's pretty much invented mumble singing here. But still, considering all the pros and cons of the first disc, it's still a pretty decent listen. I mean, I would say it's a strong 6 to a light 7. It's mostly on par with everything Sremmurd has done up until this point. It's on the following 2 solo efforts that things start getting really rough, especially on Swaecation, which, if you are familiar with Swae Lee's contributions to Rae Sremmurd in the past, you can probably go into this disc assuming that this is going to be the more melodic, atmospheric, and smooth of the trio. And ding ding ding, you would be right, but it is the most excruciating listen of this 3-disc experience. Because for the most part, it doesn't even sound written. It just sounds like Swae is vocally riffing over these spacey trap beats, and that's it. There's very little in the way of anything that sounds like a finely crafted tuner that it was even preconceived. It's so impromptu. Not only are the performances on this disc super weak, especially on the song Red Wine, which features one of the most awkward vocal performances on this entire thing. It's like Swae didn't even know what he wanted to do going into the track. But I can't imagine how anything on this record was even drafted, because at a certain point, when you've drafted the song Guatemala for the 5th time, you had to have realized that this is a really tasteless attempt at trying to fuse trap with Latin pop. Not only down to the melodies and the generic beat, but the trash lyrics. Honestly, the second disc of this thing, in my opinion, is absolutely horrendous and one of the worst listens I've had this year of anything. And all things considered, I pretty much feel like a strong 1 on it. Now, the final disc of this thing, handled by Slim Jimmy, the Jxmtro, is better, measurably, than Swaecation, but not by much. It has its shortcomings as well. Because while it does hit harder, it has meatier instrumentals, a lot of which, again, are brought by Mike Will Made It with some co-production. And Jimmy's delivery on this thing is definitely more attention-grabbing and aggressive than what Swae offers on Swaecation. He's not so versatile a rapper that he can handle 30 minutes of a disc on his own, even with a few features, and keep it interesting. I actually think separating him away from Swae highlights just how little personality as an individual artist he has. Because there's a number of tracks on this thing where he sounds like young Jeezy for some reason, but like, even young Jeezy when he was younger had a very husky, raspy voice. It's like Jimmy kind of strikes that same tone, but he's almost like a pre-puberty young Jeezy. And that's not when he doesn't have tracks on this thing where he sounds exactly like Kodak Black. Especially on the song Changed Up, I feel like he's essentially written a good Kodak Black song here, which is just baffling to me. Like, you already kind of have this established sound and style as a member of Rae Sremmurd. I feel like Swae, for the most part, kind of stuck to what you would expect from him on a solo venture. Whereas, like, Jimmy on his own, it's like he's got no rudder, no direction. Especially on tracks like Keep God First. I mean, without Swae there to kind of swoop in and drop a great hook, there's no chorus there. It's just super tedious mush. And the features on this final disc are kind of rough too. I mean, if you have a lot of respect for Pharrell and you want to keep it, I would skip his appearance. And then Zoe Kravitz, of all people, is on this thing, who I just enjoyed hearing on the new Janelle Monáe album, but she has a rap feature on this disc, and it sounds like a bad SNL skit. It sounds like Natalie Portman rapping, like posturing and trying to sound super aggressive and super tough. Yeah, I did not get it at all. It just sounded like a satire. Which, I mean, maybe the last 2 discs of this album are, in a way, of something. I don't know. I haven't quite figured out what it's a social commentary on, but certainly the point was made, I think. Yeah, I think after this thing, unequivocally, I can say that Jimmy and Swae work better together. Hearing each of them respectively on their own disc of this 3-disc album is kind of like looking into the mirror and not seeing your reflection. Even if I am feeling like maybe a strong 4 to a light 5 on Jimmy's disc. Again, better than Swae's, but not by that much. And bringing together all of my scores for all of the discs, I think I'm feeling just like a strong 4 on this record overall. And those are my thoughts on this unnecessarily long, super bloated 3-disc Rae Sremmurd album. I mean, if you took the best songs on the entire thing and condensed that down into one single disc and maybe forced a few more collaborations out of Jimmy and Swae, I think it would have been a pretty good album. Maybe their best yet, but instead I feel like they've given into this temptation towards stream trolling and have just kind of thrown out these haphazard side projects just to kind of rack up more plays, and that's it. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. just leave a thoughtful comment in the comments if you're feeling full of thoughts. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Rae Sremmurd, forever.